Let's bring in now Jack Barsky. He was a KGB agent. He was spying on the U.S. for a time during close to the end of the Cold War. And that was until he was caught by the FBI. Now he is an American citizen, and he is telling his story in a new book. It's called Deep Undercover: My Secret Life and Tangled Allegiances as a KGB Spy in America. So you can imagine, this is going to be a pretty interesting perspective. Jack, good to have you here this morning. Thank you very much for joining us. You became a spy, of course, for the Kremlin. You were working undercover here in the United States. You're hearing all the allegations that are now being made about the election and how Russia may have tried to influence it. Do you think it is possible that Russia has actually somehow infiltrated the White House?
I don't want to speculate. Anything is possible in the intelligence realm. The bottom line is, when it comes to intelligence matters, the real truth, if it ever comes out, may take 30, 40, 50 years to come out. Like, for instance, what happened in the United States with regard to Soviet spying in the 40s and 50s is now pretty much out in the open, but it took a long time. So today, we will not be able to really find the truth.
All right, so if we can't, say, verify it or prove it right now, is it something, and you would know, is it something that Russia would want to do and has tried in the past?
It absolutely is, but it's exceedingly difficult. You know, the Manchurian Candidate, that's fiction. Let's face it. It would require a grand conspiracy, which is nearly impossible to keep secret. When I was undercover, there were about 5 people who knew about me. 5. And we kept it pretty secret.
Well, so if they can't have a grand conspiracy, there could be subtle ways. And what I bring up here is, of course, we know that there have been connections to various people that are connected to the President of the United States. Now, in fact, we're going to show you a flow chart, I believe, that gives you a pretty good idea of who is connected and how. And what I'm wondering, as you look at this, and you look at all the various names that are being thrown out here, does that imply some kind of subtle intrigue, either by buying or connecting to these various members of the White House and the administration, of getting in there?
I honestly don't buy into the intrigue. What I would buy into in a big way is the Russians trying to create chaos in this country, trying to destabilize this country. And in that matter, they pretty much succeeded, because what we're doing now, we're throwing bombs at each other. The Book of Mark, 2,000 years old, a house divided against itself will not stand, famously quoted by Abraham Lincoln. And we are right now very busy dividing our own house. And if I'm Putin, I'm sitting back and I'm enjoying the show. I think that is quite likely, and it also has, it has historic precedent. The other stuff, to me, I don't want to speculate.
So all these sort of, paid relationships or occasions where members of the administration have been over in Russia, or they've been paid for this or that, that you don't think is an attempt to sort of buy a mole or buy somebody. It's more of just trying to raise the questions in everyone's mind and plant these seeds of,
Yes, and there's probably some naivete in play with it, particularly with our president, who, was never really in the realm of international politics. And there's things that can happen that way, but I just cannot, at this point, it would be improper for me to go down that path to speculate anymore.
Besides dividing the House, is there an ulterior motive here by Putin? In other words, there is another grand plan yet to come and be unveiled.
Well, I think it's not a secret that Putin and the Russians are trying to rebuild what they lost, what they for a long time never had, and sort of had for a while under Stalin, which is the Soviet/Russian Empire. And as long as we're focused on each other and internally, and not focused on that plan, that gives them more leeway to do things that we really don't want done.
Can you give me an idea of just the tactics that would be employed, say, today, by Russian agents, who I presume are here, to cause this destabilization and questioning in the media and elsewhere?
Find friendly folks in the media or people who are influencers and feed them disinformation. That's been done historically as long as the KGB existed, and we now call it fake news. You know, it's called disinformation.
So the wiretap information, do you think that could have been somebody purposely feeding some journalist or someone
Who's wiretap information?
about Donald Trump and Trump Tower?
Possible. Possible. Again, you know, I don't want to join the chorus of speculators. You know, in the realm of intelligence, there's very few people who know. And the more you start speculating about things, the more you're actually feeding into the folks that were trying to, you know, create that kind of chaos.
But you do have this, obviously, really interesting perspective, and you must watch these events, either how they unfold in the media or how they're unfolding in the White House, and wonder or think, I see some fingerprints here, and they go back to Moscow.
I was not involved in these kinds of operations.
I understand.
So I was primarily into political intelligence.
It's the mindset, I guess, I'm going for.
Oh, the mindset, absolutely. If you can, you will probe everywhere you can and find ways to make a little dent here and there. Absolutely, sure.
Okay.
And they have an army of people, who, not only like people who are official employees, but also, you know, collaborators and informants, and that hasn't changed.
Should we be worried as a nation, or just aware and alert?
You know, what we should be worried about really is cyber warfare. Cyber warfare is the modern. This is pretty much Cold War 2.0.
And Russia would be willing to launch cyber warfare against the United States?
Not just Russia, others. Mm-hmm. And the potential for damage is phenomenal. Equals, possibly exceeds, you know, 1 or 2 nuclear bombs. You can pretty much incapacitate a whole country if you hack the right systems.
And
that is what I'm worried about. I have a background in information technology besides having been a spy, and I know a bit about that stuff. And this is much more dangerous. And you know, the political wrangling back and forth, I don't like it. It shouldn't be done, but that's a fact. Mm-hmm. But I think the danger is really for us to not focus on the real issue, which is cyber warfare.
You think we're being distracted?
Yes, we are.
Intentionally so?
Yes, we are.
A frightening thought. Jack Barsky, thank you very much for joining us.
You're
Welcome.
most welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.